I want to first show what a healthy EEG looks like because it can be helpful for comparing. So this is a quantitative EEG, which is the type of EEG that we collect, and it basically condenses 10 minutes of EEG data into one graph. And while Tristan received his EEG, he was sitting in a chair and he was relaxed, and they had him close his eyes. So it's called an awake eyes closed state. And so the reason why we have him in that state is we want to measure during that time, do his brain waves match the state he's supposed to be in. The awake eyes closed state is called the alpha wave state. And alpha waves we are measuring because we want to see where they're at. And then MERT actually helps treat alpha waves to improve them. And the reason why the focus is on alpha waves is because they are associated with mood stability, mental clarity, focus, stable energy, stable sleep, kind of everything that we care about for wellness. So we measure those alpha waves. This is what you're seeing. These are alpha waves that you're seeing here, which are measured by the peaks here. So these alpha waves are good. These are very stable in this ideal example because they are peaking at around 10, maybe 10 and a half. You see that's where it comes up. In all three regions, the front, the middle, and the back of the brain. They are tall and narrow and tented. They are not short. They're not loopy. You're not seeing multiple peaks in that region. They're also aligned, so they are all peaking at the same number. And that's important for like mental clarity, and it's also important for general stability. You don't want them to be all over the place. So it's kind of the happy medium. You don't want them too fast or too slow. You want this Goldilocks, calm, awake, and alpha waves are measured to basically help your body have like a sense of a reset during the stresses of the day, to help it stay calm and centered, to help it process information. You don't want it to be too fast. That can be associated with anxiety or hypervigilance. That would be if you saw peaks happening over here in this region. You don't want it to be too slow either, where it's below 9. Because then that's more associated with being sleepy, more sluggish, less rational, etc. So now that we've seen this ideal, let's look at Tristan's EEG. So this is what we measured. This was his EEG on the 16th. So we're seeing a lot of things. First of all, let me zoom in just a little bit. His EEG, let's look at the back first. He does have a peak here at 8, maybe 7.5. So it's a very slow, that's technically an alpha wave still. Anything in the blue region here is an alpha wave range, but that's a very slow alpha wave. You do not feel good if alpha waves are less than 10. He has a little bump here that kind of associates with it, still very slow. He has a little bit of a bump here. So he doesn't have much alpha wave activity, very little. And the alpha wave activity he does have is too slow. You want at least 10. The other thing we're seeing, as you're noticing here, is there's a big bump here and here and then here as well. So that's peaking between 3 and 5. This is not alpha wave activity anymore. You see that light greenish color. This is light sleep wave. It's called theta. And basically, this is the prevalent activity we're seeing. We call this a drug bump when you see excessive theta. And so I very commonly see this type of activity in someone who has had a lot of exposure to marijuana or opiates. It's probably the most common. And what's notable here is this bump is like almost as high as the alpha waves. So how tall it is impacts the severity. This is taller than the alpha wave that's present. So, and then here is definitely taller than. So this theta wave activity that we're seeing is really clinically significant. It's probably the main source of his symptoms. This is, like I said, it looks like drug exposure. What I see with alpha waves looking this way, sometimes I see with concussions where they're a lot slower than they used to be and where they don't match up. But I definitely see history of drug use here. I also see that it starts really high. In the ideal, the healthy EEG, let me pull that up really quick. It starts at like the first notch, maybe the 1.5. You don't want it starting high. And what that means is when it starts high, it's just diffuse activity that's starting it up here because there's so much of it. You're not seeing an outright peak, you're just seeing it start off high. And so that is deep sleep wave activity. It's called delta. So this is deep sleep. You're only supposed to have deep sleep between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. when you're sleeping. You should not have it during the day. So if you're having that during the day, and quite a bit of it, because its peak, so to speak, is just as high as his alpha, if not higher, that just means his brain is exhausted. And so that can correlate with feeling tired, but it really more correlates with if your brain is in a tired state, it's how is it going to respond to stressors, or how oriented is it going to be? You're likely to see less rational thinking. You can see depression and anxiety. You can see distractibility. You can see ADHD symptoms. And you can even see psychosis because the brain is not rational. So any kind of TMS treatment to help treat the alpha waves, which is what it does, to increase the activity here, to make it taller, and then to increase the speed to make it more at 10 would be really therapeutic. And these waves may never go away. These are pretty stubborn waves, the way that they're showing for him. But if you can get the alpha waves to be taller and maybe match it and faster, like at 10, even if they're at the same peak, you can get a lot of relief. If any way to just bring up that alpha can help alleviate a lot of symptoms.